Now that we have this part properly configured for new configurations, let's start adding it. So we have the 3 configurations here, and I'll start with 7 switches. So 5 switches is the default one, which is this one. So we don't need to change anything here. I'll simply go to 7 switches. Now, when you switch it, nothing will happen because in this configuration, we need to actually make some changes in order to make it effective and make it visible. Now I'll go to part. And here I'll now select this number of holes. As you know, the current configuration selected is 7 switches, so it will also display that configuration right here. As you can see, 7 switches is highlighted. So the changes which we are making will now apply on this one. So with that, I'll simply select this and right click, and I'll select configure dimension. So select it, and now it will show you all the configurations that we have created and also its complete values, the value for whatever dimension you selected, which is number of holes in this case. Now, since we have selected 7 switches, I'm going to make this number of holes or number of switches to 7. And now I'll click OK and done. And changing this changed not only number of switches, but also this entire board length because of this formula which we already added. Let's click OK and let's try it again. Now you don't need to go to that configuration to just make the changes. So you don't need to go to 3 switches configuration to make the change. You can directly change it even with this configuration. So once again, you can just right click here in number of holes and select configure dimension, and you can change it for 3 switches. So here I'll just make it 3 holes and click OK. Now the change is not visible because this change is applied only on this configuration 3 switches. So if I now go to configuration manager and double click 3 switches, it will show just 3 switches. Then we have 5 switches, and then we have 7 switches. Now again, let's consider the example of this 5 switches. Now in this configuration, we don't want fillet. And let's say we also don't want these gaps, the gap which we have here for the hole, we don't want it as well. So we want to hide these 2 features only in this 5 switches configuration. Now to do that, you can activate any configuration which you want, but 5 switches is what I've kept active for now, and then I'll go to the feature tree. Now this fillet feature is added right here. That's this one. So select the feature which you want to hide or suppress, and then right click and select configure feature. Now, once again, we have the same modify configuration option, and here we have 5 switches as well as other configurations, but here I'll simply suppress the feature in this 5 switches. Click OK and done. That's gone. You can now visually see the difference. You can also hide this gap, which happens to be this wire cut feature. So I'll just select this wire cut feature, right click and configure feature, and I'll just hide it only in 5 switches and done. And then we have this configuration. Now, if you switch different configurations, you'll get this. So we have the features in all the other configurations except this 5 switches feature. Now, these are not the only things that you can change. You can even apply a material to any specific configuration. So right now, no material is applied. As you can see, material is not specified. Now, if you want to specify a material, once again, just go to this material option, right click and select configure material. Now it will show you list of material for every single configuration. I'm going to select a material for 5 switches configuration. So I'll go to this drop down, and from this list you can select one, or you can go to browse more to see the entire list of material here. Now in this case, I'll select plastic, and I'll select PET plastic for this one. So here we have it, the PET plastic, and I'll select apply. Now, if this prompt shows up, it is basically prompting you to just link the configuration with the display state. Now, if you want to link it, select yes. In this case, I'll just select yes, and then I'll close it. And I'll click OK to close this as well. And the material is applied. So let's now go back to this one, and I'll select 3 switches, and we have the default material, which is nothing. And then we don't have any material here. Now let's make it something different. Now for 7 switches, let's just apply maybe wood as the material, something not traditional. So I'll right click, go to configure material, and for 7 switches, I'll select wood. So I'll just scroll down, browse more, and I'll select wood here. And maybe let's just select oak, apply, and close. And just click OK, and we have this material applied only in this configuration. Now this configuration can also be changed directly from the dimensions that we have here. So far we have only changed this number of holes for our configuration, but now let's for a moment assume that we also want different width for this switchboard for different configurations, and I'm going to just do that only for one single configuration. So maybe I'll just go to this 5 switches, and here I want a different thickness, and that thickness option is here. So that's the width of our board, as you can see here. So simply double click here, and now you can change to whatever value you want. So in this case it is 80 mm. I'm just going to make it 120. And now we have an extra option here of selecting the configuration. So here I'll simply click here, and then you can select which configuration to apply this property. So you can apply this changed dimension to this configuration to all configuration, which is currently the default condition, or you can specify any specific configuration. In this case, I'll select this configuration because we know that 5 switches is active configuration, and that's where we want to apply this property. So I'll select this configuration only, click OK. And now this width is applied only for this configuration. Now it may look like nothing has changed here, so I'm just going to rebuild this document, and now the changes are visible. Let's now change the configuration. So 3 switches, that's this one, 5 switches, completely different, 7 switches, well, back to normal. So using configurations, we've managed to create different iterations of our same part.